When I was on a business trip in Singapore, my parents decided to let my younger sister move into my house. They proudly called to tell me the news, and I simply replied, "I sold that house last week." That was my declaration of war, and the beginning of my long-awaited revenge against their years of control. My name is Alexandra, and I'm 35 years old. I work for a trading company handling the development of new markets across Asia. Traveling the world isn't just part of my job, it's my entire life. My days in Singapore were a battlefield. 2 weeks after the project began, my team finally succeeded in securing a major contract with a leading local company. That night, we celebrated modestly at a rooftop bar atop Marina Bay Sands. I had achieved something on the global stage through my own efforts. This was the moment I had sacrificed everything for. And then, right in the middle of that shining moment, it happened. My phone started buzzing violently in my pocket. On the screen were 2 characters. Mother. A bad feeling ran through my chest. I considered ignoring it so as not to ruin the mood, but the phone kept ringing relentlessly. Reluctantly, I stepped out to a quiet terrace. "Hi, Mom. I'm in the middle of an important dinner," I said, keeping my voice calm but edged with irritation. But my mother ignored my tone and answered brightly, "Alexandra, this is wonderful. You're finally going to be useful to the family." It didn't make sense to me. Useful? What on earth was she talking about? She went on, sounding incredibly pleased with herself. "It's about Christina. She's moving into your condo. Now she won't have to pay rent, and since you were living there alone, it's perfect." At that moment, the celebratory mood in Singapore evaporated. The sound of champagne bubbles in my mind disappeared, replaced by a low, ringing noise in my ears. My sister Christina. Moving into my fortress? Who gave them permission? There was a reason I had sold that condo to fully commit myself to this project. That condo had been both a symbol of my success and the final stronghold my family used to intrude on my life. When I was in my early 30s, I finally bought my dream place entirely on my own. A small condo overlooking the city. It wasn't just a home. It was proof of my independence, a sanctuary that belonged to no one but me. This Singapore assignment was the biggest opportunity of my career. I was appointed to lead a large-scale project to rebuild the entire logistics network across Asia. If I could close this deal, my position in the company would be unshakable. So, before leaving, I made a major decision. I sold the condo. All I told my family was, "I've taken care of the house. You don't need to worry about it anymore." For me, that place was a symbol of the past, and to step into my new future, I needed to clear away the remnants of that past. When I first bought the condo, my mother had been overjoyed, as if I'd bought a vacation home for Christina. "Alexandra, you finally settled down. Now Christina can come stay anytime she wants," she'd said. In reality, Christina made a spare key without my permission, hosted parties with her friends, and even took my designer handbags without asking. Whenever I confronted her, she snapped back, "Stop being so stingy, we're family." That was the moment I decided. This Singapore project would mark the end of it all. By letting go of the condo, the only physical link that allowed them to meddle in my life, I would finally claim my freedom. It wasn't just a financial move. It was my personal ritual to cut ties with the past and begin a new life. A month before my departure, I contacted a real estate agent. Fortunately, demand for properties in the city center was high, and a buyer was found almost immediately. The offer far exceeded what I'd paid, making it the perfect timing financially as well. When I told my friend Hillary, she looked concerned. "Are you sure? That place was your castle, she said. I confided in her, "It's not a castle. It's a flimsy fortress, always under threat. I want to build a real castle somewhere I can truly be free." Hillary, who had seen my struggles over the years, nodded. "Yeah, if it's you, Alexandra, you'll be fine anywhere." Her words strengthened my resolve. A week before leaving, I called my parents. I had no intention of telling them I'd sold the condo. It would only cause unnecessary drama. So, in a businesslike tone, I simply said, "I've taken care of the house before my long trip. There's nothing for you to worry about." I heard them whispering to each other on the other end. Then my mother came back on the line with that saccharine tone she always used when she wanted something. "Well, Alexandra, that's perfect. Christina's been complaining her apartment is too small. She's going to live in your place while you're away and manage it for you. It's a win-win for everyone, right?" My head spun. How did "I've taken care of it" get translated into "it's ready for your sister to move in"? I answered firmly, "That won't work. Someone else is managing it now." I didn't mention that someone else was the new owner. My father yelled, "What? You'd rather pay some stranger than let family take care of it?" "How ungrateful can you be?" I replied calmly. "Yes, it's far more reasonable and much less stressful." Then, before they could argue back, I hung up. Looking back, they must have already planned to sneak Christina into my condo while I was away. To them, my sanctuary was nothing more than an empty house waiting to be used. With Singapore's glittering skyline behind me, I replayed my mother's words in my head. "Christina moved into your condo." It felt as if my blood had reversed its flow. I clenched my phone tightly and managed to squeeze out a few words. "What do you mean? I never gave permission for that." Completely unfazed by my anger, my mother cheerfully replied, "Oh, it's a surprise. Christina moved her things in the day after you left. Your father and I helped. She was thrilled about the big living room. You must be happy your little sister's so excited, right?" "I'm not happy, not at all. Tell her to get out, now." My voice was lower and colder than even I expected. "Why would you say something like that?" my mother protested. "Christina already canceled the lease on her old apartment. Are you really going to leave your sister out on the street?" That's when everything clicked. The handover of the condo had already been completed, but the new owners, Mr. and Mrs. Simpson, were planning to move in next month after doing some minor renovations. My parents, knowing the place would be temporarily vacant and that I'd be overseas, had decided to establish the facts first. By moving Christina in and having her give up her apartment, they were betting that neither I nor the new owners would be able to kick her out once everything was set. I took a deep breath. "The keys. How did she even get inside?" "Oh, the spare key you gave us for emergencies," my mother said casually. "Your father kept it safe all these years." "Ah, right." That key, given in goodwill, had been turned into the very weapon used to breach my fortress. My anger was slowly giving way to something else. A hollow, almost bitter sense of emptiness. My family had no respect for my property, my privacy, or even the legal agreement I had with the Simpsons. While I was fighting for my future in Singapore, they were busy dismantling my credibility behind my back. I took another breath, steadying my voice. If I let my emotions take over, I'd lose. I couldn't fight them on their terms. It was time to use the skills I'd honed in the business world. On my own family. "Mom, listen carefully. Christina is trespassing in someone else's home. Tell her to pack up and leave immediately." I heard my mother's confused voice on the other end of the line. "What are you talking about?" In her mind, the old equation still held true. Alexandra's house = Christina's free domain. I mean exactly what I said. That condo isn't mine anymore. I sold it. Which means Christina is currently living in a stranger's house without permission. That's a crime. There was a brief silence. And then my mother's shrill voice burst through the phone. "No way. No, Alexandra. You would never do something so cruel. You sold the house behind our backs." "Cruel?" I laughed bitterly. "What's really cruel is calling me with this nonsense in the middle of the most critical moment of my career. And for the record, it's my property. I don't owe you explanations, and I don't need your permission." My calm response left her speechless. That's when my father grabbed the phone, his voice shaking with rage. "Alexandra, do you even hear yourself? Your sister's in trouble. What kind of person refuses to help their own family?" "A human being," I said evenly. "A human being who's done being exploited by her own family. When I struggled to pay my college tuition, did you help? When I was drowning at work, did you care? You only invoke family when it's about helping Christina. I'm done playing along with that hypocrisy." The words poured out of me like years of pent-up sludge finally breaking free. The warm Singapore night breeze on my flushed cheeks felt strangely refreshing. This was my declaration of war. My counterattack had begun. My father seemed furious at how direct I was. "Have you forgotten everything we did for you? You ungrateful child. The only reason you're living such a good life overseas is because of us." I actually laughed. I'd heard this line too many times. "No, I'm here because of my own hard work. As for your so-called debt, I hereby revoke it." "Anyway," he roared, trying to regain control of the conversation, "call the buyers and cancel the contract right now. Your sister needs a place to live." "There's no way to cancel the contract," I cut in, my voice turning icy. "And more importantly, you don't seem to grasp the situation. Christina isn't living in my condo anymore. She's illegally occupying Mr. and Mrs. Simpson's home. That's criminal trespass." The other end of the line went silent for a moment. "Listen carefully. I will fully support Mr. and Mrs. Simpson if they decide to press criminal charges against you. And as for the damages I'll likely be charged for because of this mess, contractual penalties, compensation, hotel expenses while they're temporarily displaced, every single yen will be claimed from you, the ones who caused it, through my lawyer." Then I delivered the final blow. "You have a choice. Become criminals buried under debt or pack up and leave quietly. Decide." This wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. The cozy illusion of family ended right then and there. The twin weapons of law and money I had drawn were more than enough to shatter their emotional manipulation and absurd demands. The moment I uttered the word lawyer, the chaos on the other end stopped cold. Before they could recover, I ended the call. My phone screen reflected the Singapore skyline. Somehow, it looked completely different now. Like a fog that had hung over my life for years had finally lifted, revealing the world in sharp, clear outlines. Strangely enough, I didn't feel a shred of guilt. What I felt instead was an overwhelming sense of liberation. I thought it was finally over. I've finally broken free from that curse. When I returned to the celebration, my colleagues looked at me with concern. "Everything okay?" they asked. With my brightest smile, I replied, "Yeah, just a little family issue. But it's taken care of now." They poured me a fresh glass of champagne, and it was, without question, the most delicious drink I'd ever had. Back at my hotel, I opened my laptop and began drafting an email. The recipients were the condo's new owners, Mr. and Mrs. Simpson. They were a refined, gentle, elderly couple. During the sale, when I mentioned my upcoming overseas assignment, they had said kindly, "You're working so hard for someone so young. Please take care of yourself," with the warmth of parents speaking to their daughter. In my email, I explained the situation honestly, that my family had entered the property without my permission, that I would take full responsibility and resolve it before involving the police, and that I deeply apologized for the trouble they had been caused. Within minutes, a reply arrived from Mr. Simpson. "That's a surprise, but we understand the situation. It must be painful for you to go through this with your family. We're not in any rush. We'll quietly wait for you to resolve it in a way that feels right to you. Please don't blame yourself." Their words brought me to tears. They were words filled with kindness and understanding, something I had never once heard from my own blood relatives. It was painfully clear who the real adults were, who the truly decent human beings were. These weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. Proof that my decision had been right. The next morning, I woke up in my hotel room in Singapore and saw that my phone had 0 missed calls. The incessant ringing from the night before had vanished completely. It was proof of how effective the single-word lawyer had been. As I'd expected, my parents never contacted my attorney. They must have realized that doing so would only make their wrongdoing legally undeniable. Even my father, the self-proclaimed ruler of their little family kingdom, seemed to have finally grasped that in the face of real legal power, he was powerless. That afternoon, my lawyer called me from overseas. "Alexandra, your family reached out," he said. I was surprised. They called the office directly? "No," he chuckled. "They somehow got my personal number. I suppose they were desperate. It was your father." My lawyer spoke with amused detachment. At first, he tried to sound authoritative, saying he'd speak on his daughter's behalf. But the moment I told him, "I'm Alexandra's legal representative, may I ask what this is regarding?" he completely changed his tone. By the end, he was practically pleading, saying he wanted to understand his daughter's true intentions and settle things quietly. I couldn't help but laugh. He'd probably imagined lawyers as mercenaries he could control with money, like in TV dramas. But when he hit the cold, immovable wall of legal reality, he finally understood the gravity of the situation. As instructed, my lawyer relayed the facts to them, calmly and without emotion. First, Christina must vacate the property immediately. Second, the keys must be formally returned to Mr. and Mrs. Simpson through the law firm. Third, all further communication with me must go through my lawyer. And finally, if these conditions are not met, we will proceed with legal action without hesitation. For them, it must have felt like a death sentence. Their world, the one where tears, tantrums, and threats always made me yield, collapsed in an instant. The fortress they called family was shockingly fragile. 2 days after that legal ultimatum, I received a message from an unfamiliar number. It was Christina. "Alexandra, I'm sorry. I'll leave the house immediately. Please drop the legal charges. I'm begging you." In her message, there wasn't the slightest trace of her usual victim mentality or defiance toward me. All I saw was a powerless person, frightened by the weight of what she had done. She had finally been forced to face the reality that she was no longer living under her sister's protection, but within the rules of society. I didn't reply. I felt no sympathy, no forgiveness. The people she owed an apology to were not me, but the Simpsons, the ones she had truly wronged. Later that night, I received a long email from my mother. It was filled with words of regret for their past actions, memories from my childhood, and a plea. Can't we start over as a family just one more time? At first glance, the email seemed like a heartfelt apology, but between the lines, I could clearly see what they were truly afraid of: losing me completely. The me who had been their money tree and convenient emotional punching bag for years. I didn't respond to that email either. Instead, I contacted my lawyer and asked him to deliver my final message. The next day, he summoned my parents and Christina to his office and conveyed my words, exactly as I'd written them. Alexandra's message is as follows. With this incident, all ties between us are severed. Do not contact me again for any reason, including weddings, funerals, or family events. If you break this promise and approach me again, I will file for a restraining order and involve the police without hesitation. That is all. According to my lawyer, the three of them sat in silence, staring down at the floor. My father, my mother, and Christina. At that moment, they understood completely. Their control was over. I was never coming back. This wasn't reconciliation. It was severance, the final and most decisive step in reclaiming my life. 6 months have passed since my declaration of severance from my family. The Singapore project was a resounding success, and in recognition of my work, I was promoted to regional manager for Asia. These days, I'm based in Singapore, constantly flying between Jakarta, Bangkok, and Taipei. I now live in a new serviced apartment in the heart of Singapore. From my windows, I can see the lush greenery of the botanical gardens and the gleaming modern skyline. It's a breathtaking view. This place is my new sanctuary, untouched, undisturbed, entirely mine. The other day, my team threw me a surprise party to celebrate my promotion. People from all different countries and cultures gathered together, singing, "Alexandra, congratulations." I felt a deep, genuine warmth fill my chest. This was the kind of connection I had truly longed for. One day, amidst these fulfilling new routines, I received an international letter. The sender, Mr. and Mrs. Simpson, the new owners of my former condo in the US. Inside was a carefully written letter and several photographs. The letter began by addressing the aftermath of the incident. Dear Alexandra, we hope your work in Singapore is going well. Regarding the previous matter, thanks to your prompt and sincere response, we were able to resolve everything peacefully without escalating the situation. We are truly grateful. Then they continued, your younger sister also sent us a heartfelt letter of apology. It was as though she was in tears. Over the years, we've witnessed many different kinds of families. Mistakes happen to everyone, especially in their youth. We felt it was more important to nurture new happiness in this home than to make the issue bigger. Please don't blame yourself. As I read those words, I felt a weight lift from my chest. Their decision not to pursue legal action wasn't out of pity or indulgence. It was the result of my prompt actions, Christina's apology, and their own deep, seasoned understanding of life. All these elements came together to form the warmest and wisest resolution possible. The second half of the letter was filled with stories of their new life. The photos showed a home brimming with warmth. Antique furniture in the living room, photos of their grandchildren on the walls. That space, once too big for me alone, was now filled with laughter and love. Recently, we harvested our first tomatoes from the garden. If you ever return to the US, please come visit us. My decision hadn't only set me free, It had quietly led everyone involved to the most peaceful conclusion possible. That house had fulfilled its role in my story and had started a new chapter under new owners. And that was exactly as it should be. A few days later, I received an email from a cousin I'd stayed in touch with. It briefly described the current situation of my family. First, Christina. After leaving my condo, she stayed with my parents for a while. But without the luxuries she'd grown accustomed to, she started working part-time to cover her living expenses. Her job? A cashier at a local supermarket. For someone who once believed she was a chosen artist, repeating monotonous tasks every day must have been a shock. I pictured the scene, but felt nothing. No pity. No satisfaction. Just nothing. Her friends had drifted away as well. Most of them had only stuck around because of my financial status and influence. Once she lost her golden goose, they lost interest. For the first time in her life, she was forced to confront the truth that her value had been propped up by me all along. Then, my parents. Their old age turned out to be far harsher than I had imagined. With Christina back under their roof, their pensions weren't enough to sustain their lifestyle. My father, though retired, started working as a security guard for seniors. My mother lost her social standing in the neighborhood and began spending most of her days shut inside the house. At the end of the email, my cousin wrote, "They're reaping exactly what they sowed." I quietly deleted the message. I didn't feel joy or sympathy or even hatred. There was only a calm sense of resolution. Everything had returned to where it rightfully belonged. That was the moment my revenge was truly complete. Not because they were miserable. That had never been the goal. But because I had erased their presence from my life entirely. And they were now facing the consequences of their own actions.